We get the roll call, please.
Committee Member Hunter, Chair Key,
Here.
Committee Member Murrell,
Here.
Committee Member Robertson, not here,
He's sick.
Committee Member Robinson,
Here.
and Committee Member Rozier. And Council Member DeGolia.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any public comments in the room or online? And this is for items that are not on the agenda. Do we see anything online? Nope. Okay. Right. Then why don't we move on? No presentations today. The approval of minutes, item 4. So you've all been given the minutes ahead of time, and are there any updates or corrections? Although I think Will did update them. A few comments people had since the one sent out last week, or sorry, sent out last week. Are there any other additional comments for the minutes from last meeting? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Seeing none, unanimously approved. Okay, let's move on to the playground, item 5. So, can't stop. provide the
Thank
report.
you, Chair, members of the committee. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the couple of alternatives that we have pending for your consideration, including the conventional type playground as well as the inclusive design from the Magical Bridge Foundation. Magical Bridge Foundation has also presented their proposal in terms of management of the process associated with that more inclusive design. So we'll be highlighting that as well. And then the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions, receive public comment, and we're hoping that you'll be able to make a recommendation to the city council regarding a preferred alternative. And in checking with the city manager, the likelihood is that that would be brought forward for consideration and discussion at the December study session.
Okay, so probably how,
Not November?
No, due to calendaring and other items on the agenda, it would be for direction at the council study session, first week of December.
in terms of the procedure, I guess you'll provide the summary, the subcommittee will present, then we'll open up for questions from the committee and public comment, and then any other committee
Yeah,
comment.
and we do have folks from Magical Bridge online to answer any clarifying questions or
Okay, great.
provide additional information that the committee would be interested in.
Okay,
And so we have Elaine Captain from Magical Bridge, and then Olinka was going to join us, but I'm not sure if she's going to be able to due to some
yeah. And we
other
also have-
matters.
Is it Laurel? Yeah, we have Laurel in the room too.
Oh, I'm so impressed that you consider me as helpful as the Lincoln, but thank you.
No problem.
I'm just a resident.
So again, I'm just going to give a high level overview of the options and kind of the process that we've gone through. And then, like I said, the subcommittee can make the presentation on their recommendation, and we're open for feedback from the committee. So I'm going to start by doing a kind of a reminder overview of the conventional type playground. Since the committee has last met, there's actually been a reversion back to more of the original concept drawing that we had. As discussed at the last meeting, kind of that presentation by Game Time was well outside of the project budget. And going back towards that initial feedback and comments that we had received from the public. There were a couple of iterations in terms of trying to make this type of playground a little more accessible, but in going back and forth with the committee, it was determined kind of with the subcommittee, to try and keep it within budget and maintain as many of the original play features. In this option, while there's additional consideration for that secondary option with the more inclusive design from the Magical Bridge Foundation. And so I'm going to apologize. It is a little faint on the screen. You have the attachment that was provided in the staff report. But just a reminder that there's two distinct areas. One is for the younger kids, which is located where the older structure is currently, to provide a little more of that natural shade that we have with the trees. A smaller structure that's about 4 feet in height with 3 slides, log climber, step climber to get in there. We have that log crawl through, a couple of swings, including expression swing and the playhouse. Seating in the middle with shade, and we do still retain the sand play area. The tot area is fully enclosed with fencing. And then there's a middle seating area, and then the older kids play area with the larger structure. I'm going to go into a couple of the renderings. Oops. Here. Apologies. So this here is the older kids area with a 2-story structure, slides. We do have a spin table and shade structures. Then this here is the backside view of that same area. And then this here is a rendering of the tot area.
And where's the sand?
In this image, the sand is back in the corner behind the structure in the light gray.
It's next to the seating area in the middle.
I see. Behind the seats?
Yeah, behind the seats.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, I'm going to zoom in there. If you look at the screen here,
Back there. Yeah.
back there is where that sand area is.
Okay.
So this again is the overview of the conventional style playground. In terms of an overview, this expands the footprint of the existing play area on what is now the tot side for the older kids area by 2,300, about 20, almost 2,400 square feet. The overall construction cost through a cooperative agreement would be somewhere around $930,000, including fencing, and then that allows for about 70,000 or about 8% available for contingencies in case something comes up during construction. We did ask for the additional cost to provide additional poured-in-place rubber for the tot area to infill the entire area. That would net a need for about 2,900 square feet of additional PIP at a cost of about $36,000. So that would kind of push us over budget, but it's an option that's available for consideration.
Robert, as we're looking at these, is that the extra PIP there or not?
No, that's the basic. It's where the wood fiber is shown in the tot area that would be extra.
That's will be all PIP.
If you wanted it to be
Yeah.
all PIP, it would be another $36,000.
So the basic is there to keep us within budget, and it gives access to a lot of the main play areas, so those remain accessible. But if we want accessibility across the entire area, then it will cost that additional 56,000.
And there isn't a fence around the older kids' play area, is
No.
that correct?
That's not proposed. So I'm going to highlight the magical bridge concept. Again, it's a concept that has not yet been vetted through the public. It was just a rendering layout of what conceivably could happen in the park. Has a variety of features, and as we go into their proposal, they are including in their proposal a public outreach effort to vet the concept and get input from residents with regards to features, layouts, et cetera. And so this is the concept drawing that was shared previously. And so it includes a kindness corner recognition area, a ramped slide climbing zone. So it has a ramp coming up from near where the restroom is, coming up. So this is a built-up mound, ramp accessible. And then there are different slides that come off, different types. Also the ability with some climbing elements up the slope. There is a spin zone over here, swings and other features, and I think they've included some swing benches as well. They have a water play area shown in this rendering, but I think we had some feedback provided, and they can certainly come up with alternate concepts for that area if desired. Additionally, there's a community courtyard and an imagination zone. Again, these things are conceptual in nature in terms of possibilities, and they would be outreaching to the public for direct feedback on how and what elements would be included. Okay. And so we'll do a brief highlight on the proposal. So overall, their estimate at this point is a total project cost of about $3.5 million, including design and other support through the Magical Bridge Foundation. And that would include a contribution from the town of the $1 million that we have budgeted for construction. And they would reach out to solicit donations to fill that gap, currently estimated at $2.5 million. They feel rather confident that they'll be able to achieve that goal. So again, the first effort, should this proposal be approved or approved by the council, would be that they start an outreach effort to gather feedback from the community, similar to what we did in terms of trying to find out what people want, generate concepts, do outreach events to try and get a consensus on what that playground would look like. Ultimately, that would come back to the committee and the council for approval on that direction. And during that effort, they would also start the solicitation for donations. And so they'll do the full effort on fundraising, developing their campaign, targeting individual donors, corporate donors, and others. They have methods for tracking and keeping funds in segregated accounts, et cetera, that can be used to guide the project. And so as that concept is developed, they would move into a more comprehensive design for the ultimate playground that is developed. They'd work with the town in terms of getting making sure that the drawings are complete and compatible with the improvements that we have. And during that design effort, they're going to be developing more detailed engineering estimates for the various improvements to make sure that it fits within the budget or the amount of money that they are able to raise. And so with that, we're providing information to Magical Bridge in terms of the survey that we've conducted. We have a couple of options in terms of how to implement construction. So we could post, depending on how the partnership agreement is made, we can post it for bid, manage the bid process, and we have Interwest on contract for construction management to support the project. They would be providing support services. Obviously, if there are any questions during bidding, Magical Bridge would be able to answer those. If there's any additional information that's required, they would assist us with that. And the same way with submittals during constructions and requests for information from the contractors, they'd be available to support that. And so with that, like I said, they have their target right now is $2.5 million. They believe that should be sufficient for a project of our size. They do have a couple of contingencies built in terms of whether, say, as the design is being developed, if the estimates are higher than that, they have two options. One is to scale things down closer to budget, or alternatively raise additional funds. As we all know, estimates are that. As we put the project out for bid and get actual costs, again, it's that same decision is, can we afford it? If there's sufficient funds, it's easy. If there aren't sufficient funds, again, it's those two choices. Do we scale something back? Is it as easy as removing a feature at this point to get the project built, or raise additional funds to get the project done? They have provided two alternatives in terms of implementation. And one is they do the design and, as discussed, are available to support as the town needs. We would do the bidding, oversee and manage the construction contract, or as an alternative, they could manage the construction and we would provide support. So both options are available. They have a proposed timeline. I'm going to say that it's likely going to be shifted a little bit in consideration of when the ultimate direction by council is going to be given. It won't be until December, and then you have the holidays, so things will shift just a little bit, but that's going to be the case in both options. Okay. So with that, I'm available to answer questions. We have folks from Magical Bridge that are on the line as well to answer any questions if you have any specifics on their proposal.
What's the footprint of this versus the footprint of the other one? Sorry. Pardon me. What's the footprint of the Magical Bridge design versus the first proposal we looked at?
I believe it's a greater expansion. I think it's about 50% of the 50% larger than the current one.
Okay.
But that, again, may be scaled a little bit depending on funds or.
The numbers I got, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Elaine.
Sorry, hi, this is Elaine Captain from Magical Bridge. Yeah, so the full concept plan, again, which is purely just conceptual at this time, is about 10,000 square feet, but that's inclusive of what we call the community courtyard, which could be removed based on community feedback. And if it were removed, it's about equivalent to the footprint of the game time concept. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this question, but the concept plan that was shown for game time, my understanding is that that is an iteration of the original concept plan that was presented in July, which I have open on my screen. So I was hoping you could clarify that, because it sounded like you said that you were going back to the original concept plan.
I say going back in that direction, there are a few tweaks from that original concept.
But I
Yeah,
don't-
that original concept plan was just, it was all wood chips.
Those tweets, as I recall, at least our instruction was to make as many of the Magical Bridge suggestions that we could. You'll see in the photos here, there's access now for people in wheelchairs.
Right.
They're doing a number of things. Remember, we adopted a number of the elements. of
But
that.
was there
We're
costing?
Trying to make a compromise here and get the most accessible we could while still sticking with what we saw the goal was of our survey.
Okay.
And the second thing I'd just like to ask, Robert, you said that if the cost was overrun, if it came in more than 3.5, I don't see that in their proposal. They say if the pledges don't come in adequate, then we would be forced to re-engineer or wait while they raise more money. It never says anything that I read about what happens if the bids come in higher than 3.5. So that's again, another
No.
issue that we had.
Can I respond to that? We do address value engineering if the bids come in above the total of funding available. So adjusting the design to align with the budget, and we've done that on numerous occasions.
To answer your question, Frank, a bit, the current playground area is about 6,800 square feet. The game time proposal is 9,175.
Okay.
At least those are the numbers I got from Scott.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. I was gonna chime in on that. And this concept you see in front of you for the game time one, from the June meeting, this one has changed with the PIP and a duo spinner, and then just repositioning stuff to have that PIP make it to those areas of the playground.
Did you have another question, Frank?
I do have one two-part question. One is, what is the life expectancy of the components of these playgrounds? I mean, are they 5 years, 10 years? And the other thing is, what kind of ongoing maintenance are we talking about? Are there costs involved every year to maintain these other than just cleaning them up?
I'll answer the second one first. With regards to maintenance, there is varying maintenance efforts depending on what we have. And so when it comes to the playgrounds, there needs to be regular inspections. And so it doesn't matter what playground you have, you're going to incur we're going to manage that. With regards to the use of engineering wood fiber, there are required depths that need to be maintained. And so through those inspections, we'll be taking a look at that, as well as if there are areas of the PIP that may be impacted or any other surfacing issues. And so the need to replenish, whether the sand or the engineered wood fiber in the conventional playground, that is something that we do today and we're going to have to continue to do. With the rubberized surfacing, initially it'll last longer in terms of we don't anticipate immediate deterioration, whereas there's regular replenishment of the other materials. But it will start to break down over time and get worn in certain areas. And then that'll be factored into our maintenance budget to be able to do repairs. And so they may be spot repairs, more than likely in terms of the fiber stuff. I'm sorry, the rubberized material. And so it does age, it does crack, color fades, and then areas get torn up a little bit. Both concepts have that type of material. I think there's other surfacing that is proposed in the the more inclusive design. I think we'll get more information on what those materials are as we get through the concept. Overall, I'm going to say, I'm not worried too much at this point. I don't anticipate that there are going to be any exorbitant costs in either direction for a number of years. The longer term, I'm going to say that I'll have Scott and maybe Elaine chime in, but I'm going to guess that each structure is probably geared towards a life of about 15 years. And I'm going to guess that that's going to be the same across the board. And then depending on parts and components and where they're manufactured, there may be time constraints in terms of getting parts and pieces and, whatever the supply chain issues are at that time.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, Dorothy?
I don't know how to word this because I'm late to the rodeo, and I've tried to go back to former discussions and stuff, and the only one I could jump onto the past week was the one where it was brought up that the city was allowing $1 million for the playground. And so I started thinking about that and putting it in my head, $1 million is a lot of money. And with the amount of use that I see being used at our playground, because every time I go into the park, I will often walk by, if not, I've driven by. And the times that I see our playground used for the greatest number of kids for the longest period of time are weekend birthday parties, not during the school hours. I will see nannies or parents bringing their kids, for a couple hours or so during the days off and on, where I will walk by and I'll see maybe 2 adults and 3 kids. But I'm wondering, what do we want to spend for a low turnout of kids? Or is it the theory of we build it, they will come?
Well, I'm going to word it another. We have a playground.
Right, we have it and it's used.
And it's used, and the use varies time of year,
Yes.
weather.
And weekends
um,
or weekdays, parties or
Yeah.
non-parties.
And so it is an amenity at the park.
Right, I know, I'm not saying to get rid of the playground.
Okay,
But
so
I'm thinking of the dollars to expand it and it does need some updating, but
that's what this,
effectiveness.
that's what this project is. So I mean, there was a point in time, I think a couple years ago, that we actually had to shut down the playground because it was so deteriorated that it was unsafe to use.
Right.
So we did some repairs. Coming out of that, it's like, okay, so we did some repairs. It'll last however long the repairs last, but what was programmed and what we have before us is an opportunity to improve, enhance, and make new again, as opposed to reinvigorating an old structure.
Right, and I understand the need to improve and review. But I'm wondering, do we want to stick within the budget that the city had granted us of $1 million? Or do we really want to go all out for the 3 million?
So in both options, the town's dollar is pretty much right now, it's the
It's the
same.
same?
And so that expansion in terms of budget and scope and is being offered through the Magical Bridge Foundation with support of others. And so
We're 1 million of that 3.5.
that's correct.
So originally, go ahead, Bob.
3.5 has to happen. Okay, I know there's a process to go through to find out if we get people to give money at that amount, but it's not a given.
And that's why in the schedule that's proposed is that there's an outline of time to allow for pledges and other efforts to start that fundraising campaign. And so they're asking for a few months in the beginning to try and get those pledges. And that would be followed by securing the contributions.
So if we can't get the pledges, we go back to standard?
That would be my guess. I mean, that's going to be ultimate direction from the council,
Not what it
but
says.
Yeah, I would say there's two options then. One is value engineer the Magical Bridge Playground proposal to meet the funds that are available, or go back to standard,
or the third alternative is to raise additional
or
funds.
raise additional funds. Yeah, so.
Yeah, okay. We just say, oh, we'll just raise additional funds. Okay,
And the timing would be, they
okay, that's fine.
propose,
$3 million. Oh,
they propose to have that raised by next October, which is when the bids would go out for the first time.
mm,
In other words, the bids on the standard one will go out immediately as soon as the council approves it. Whereas
No,
this
well,
would be
we need to-
October, and then it would finish the first quarter of 2026 is what the proposal.
Okay, so let me just clarify. Once we get the council direction, if we were to go with a conventional, we would be working to finalize the design. We can't go out to bid right away. We need to do the design work. What we have on both levels are concept stuff. So they need to, in either, I'm going to say, in our case, in the case of the conventional, in the case of the conventional, we have the concept layout, we know the elements and stuff, but it still needs to get to the construction drawing level. Okay, and so there is some time associated with that, so it's not an immediate thing. With the case of the more inclusive design through Magical Bridge, you'll have two parallel efforts going on, meaning that they'll be working on their fundraising and they'll be working on their community outreach to get that concept fully flushed. And so those two are going to meet at a point where they have they have secured enough pledges to get that to the construction level. And then they'll be securing those pledges into actual cash so that so we can collectively put it out to construction bid.
I want to ask the committee a question. So the subcommittee has done work with Scott to kind of get the proposal to where it is now, but I want to ask the remaining members of the committee if they have any feedback on the standard design, the conventional design, if they want to see anything changed or it looks fine to them. It's, we can get that in now.
Want to go through the presentation?
The presentation's more making the recommendation, but if there's, I want to finish up the discussion of the design to make sure we don't have any changes. And then once we do that, then we can go through my presentation or our presentation
Okay.
and then,
Okay.
and then make. a
And then
decision.
you'll decide where you want public
Yeah,
input.
exactly. So
Sorry,
Dorothy,
Can I ask a question? This is Elaine, Captain. For some reason, I can't show my video. But again, I was hoping someone could clarify the distinction between the design. I put it in the chat that was presented during the July meeting, which was the design that was priced where the cost estimate was around the $1 million mark, and that's fully tan bark. And the one that's included in the packet today. And the reason I raised this is because my concern is that there is no cost estimate for the design that does include some of the adjustments. And there is no mechanism to address the funding shortfalls.
That one you put in the chat was all the way from the community outreach. This one you see that was right in front of you is different from that one, and swapping playground sides, PIP and everything. That one that you saw in front of you that went for community outreach was not $1 million. It was around the 650, 700. So we have itemized costs of everything for this playground at the contract price through the Omnia. That was won through a competitive bid for Game Time. And it prices out everything from demo, install, the equipment, the PIP, the downturns, the benches, the play features, the custom put together big tall one, all broken down to where with the fencing, it's about $928,000. And then with an 8% contingency, putting you right around that 1 million.
Exclusive of design costs. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to make sure that we were talking.
Yep.
okay. If there's no more committee questions on the two proposals, I can start my presentation.
Okay. Did you want any detailed comments on the plan?
Did I?
You asked for.
Yeah,
some-
but I don't think either.
I mean,
Dorothy or-
I have three.
Okay.
If you want
please.
details. One
Sure,
is,
why not?
one is the comments we got was, let's keep the nature of this park like a park. So I would suggest that the PIP be brown, rather than this somewhat brighter color that we have in the plan there. I would also suggest that we have 12 benches here. I don't see, as Dorothy says, as many people there as we're going to need 12 benches. There, and to do that, on the big kid side, we have to have 3 very large coverings, which are going to be expensive. So I think we ought
Large
to.
what?
tweak
Covers.
this.
Covers?
Shades.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You can see them on the right side there, one of which is over the 4 benches in the middle, which would seem to me to be, nice. But anyway, I would design that so that some of those are, or at least one is a picnic table perhaps. And just, I don't see we need 12 of these things. Anyway, that would make that comment. I've also given to Robert and to Scott my views on what the bark should be. There's a very nice, finer bark that's much easier to do things like put a wheelchair through, which comes from the tunnel tops in San Francisco, which is all made out of wooden or simulated wooden facilities. So that would be, I would look at.
The only thing I would add is, when you finish the design, have as much shade as possible. I think that was the recurring feedback we heard from residents and neighbors, is that, it's very hot during the summer, and as much shade
Yeah.
as possible that can be put in, they'd like. to
Yeah,
see.
so again, like I said, these are, I mean, we've done, there's been a lot of work on the conventional side.
Mhm.
It's not final, it's still concept level. So there is, if that's the direction that we ultimately go, there's opportunities to make adjustments.
Okay, great.
And then similarly with the other design, it's early phase and it's, there are going to be plenty of opportunities to provide input from the community as well as the committee on what that ultimate design looks like.
I didn't know how final this has to make to go to council as far as.
No, I think right now, what is going to go to council is a recommendation from the committee in terms of direction. Okay, and so conventional or magical bridge, and then the council will make the ultimate decision on which way.
Yeah. So I think either way, we have to make one recommendation or the other, because for staff to work with a different provider, they would need approval from the council to do that. Okay, so if I could.
You have opportunity. I
Oh,
think
okay, go ahead.
Councilmember
Go ahead.
DeGolia has a question.
So I'd say, just looking at the images of the conventional one, it looks like quite a bit of open space to me when I look at it. Now, maybe that has to be the case, but that's what it looks like. And when I look at the Magical Bridge, I love a bunch of their images, and I know we've used some, we've incorporated some of them. And that was kind of the charter of the subcommittee, to incorporate as many as possible. The one that we didn't incorporate, in their imagination zone, they have these sound items, these poles that I'm sure kids get extremely attracted to, because the sound is not something that they normally would listen to or play with. And given the amount of space that we have, if we go with the conventional, I'd like to see us incorporate a couple of these sound things, because I
Okay.
think they're really terrific.
Okay.
I think that the stage that they have is also great, but I'm sure it's very expensive. So,
Remembering that those places, as they just pointed out, are 4 times larger than what we would have.
no, I
We
understand.
have the stages. and so on.
But we've got lots of room where you could put in 3 or 4 poles, and it
Oh, the
wouldn't
poles would
take
be
up
fine. I'm thinking
much space. No, I understand that would take, I get that.
Yeah.
But They have a couple different of those sound-related items, which I'm sure excite kids' imaginations, and no doubt about it. And we should incorporate that.
I can give you a little bit reason why there is a lot of spaces for the fall zones that are required by the engineering that, when we see the drawings, we see like a little outline outside of each apparatus. And I think what Scott or whoever designs it has to do is move these around so they don't overlap. The fall zones
Yeah,
don't overlap.
but I'm looking at like the large kids area where you exit from the slide. I understand you need room around that.
Yeah.
But there's quite a bit of space between that and the swings.
I think it's the swing fall zone. where-
Okay, well.
If that's
whatever.
ultimately the direction, we can figure
Yeah.
Yeah.
that stuff out. That's not,
What's really instructive, Rick, is what I did is you see the blue marker, that's a fall zone. If you look at the schematic. And
Yeah, that's what those-
Shows you the small fall zones.
So,
It's on this side
yeah,
over here.
I mean, you could probably fit some of that sound apparatus maybe in between. it.
there's room.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about that, but as indicated, there's basically a bubble around each structure.
Makes sense.
So,
Okay.
Also, I know kids love to run bathrooms to
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and share it. Yeah. Let me hit share. Screen. Okay. So the subcommittee had met, I don't know, how many times do we meet? 2 or 3 times? Yeah, since we've had a couple months since our last meeting to discuss the 2 proposals. We're kind of at this decision point. We have to.
you hit presentation mode.
Oops.
It's taken out.
Yeah, let me do that. There we go. And it'll delay a little bit. There it goes. So we've tried to figure out what's the best way to go. Certainly Magical Playground has a great proposal, and I know my son really loves Magical Playground, so I know there's a lot of benefits from that. But we took a look at both proposals, and we have 2 options. We have one which we're calling the standard conventional proposal. That one is budget constrained and within budget, so about $1 million. That's what Atherton has allocated for this playground, so it meets within that budget, although we have an ad alternate, which is the additional PIP if we want to make it more accessible for additional, was it 30,000, something like that? It meets ADA and general code requirements. And we have the conceptual design done, and we're kind of, I think we're ready to go to the next step if we want to, which is to the construction documents. Is that correct? Robert?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
2 construction documents we're pretty much at the end of conceptual design, and we're basically.
For the most part.
Okay. So this has been kind of a year accumulation of knowledge from community and talking within the committee and such. So I think from input community point of view, I think we're pretty good in that aspect. It makes the playground bigger, about 35% bigger compared to our current size. And we've done a lot of work to make sure it addresses what our community says they want the most in terms of what they identify as most fun, to things that, they iteratively thought like a little less fun, but we still want it. Things like a sandbox and vertical climbers and things like that. And the Magical Bridge design is very inclusive. It's more inclusive than the standard conventional design. It does cost more. It is a little bit bigger. It's about 50% bigger than our current footprint, but 15% bigger, plus or minus, than the standard conventional option. Because it is it is an inclusive design, they can't do things like, say, a sandbox or other things that some of our community members have asked for in the feedback. But they are willing to go to the community to do some outreach to find out ways they can better accommodate. And Magical Bridge Playground is a well-known brand, so people in the community know about it, and they generally have very positive things to say about it. So, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is there a way we can take some of each? Or is it
That's what
exclusively
we tried
one?
to do.
Yeah, so
So could we take like the musical instrument ones from Magic Bridge and put with the other one, or they're cool slides, but not do some of the things, mix and match?
yeah, we've tried to do that. So in our subcommittee meetings, we've tried to add more ADA equipment and accommodations into the design that we proposed. So we tried that, but it's not going to be all the way to Magical Bridge Playground, all inclusive. There's a compromise in terms of, well, there's a, so.
I would say that
Bob.
your proposal can be done, but we're at the point where everything that you take and you say you want to take something else from Magical Bridge, something has to go out.
I don't understand.
In other words, on the standard design, then you can't do just the standard design. You just can't bring in something else
Why not?
because we're out of room.
So the fall zones prevent you
Out of
from
room and out of
adding
money.
things too
Yeah.
big.
Out of room and out of money.
Well, I understand those, but we just talked about like how neat the musical things are and you could put those.
Yeah, so that's because you don't
someplace else.
climb on something musical, so it can
Exactly.
fit in between.
So
the
we
fall
could do
zones.
that, or the slides off of a wall, I mean, off
Yeah.
of a wall instead of freestanding.
And
That
the,
would be the same amount of space.
the game time proposal does have musical features in it. It has 2 flower pedestals that have a tongue that you beat on the pedals, and each of them make a different sound. They're in the 2 to 5-year-old area, if you zoom in on one of those renderings, but there's definitely other options that can be put in musically, like for musical features.
And you've got suggestions from Rick about what that replacement could be. Okay, so the concerns that we have about both proposals, so one in the standard conventional proposal was accessibility. It is accessible, it's ADA compliant, but it's not all abilities like Magical Playground. The subcommittee has tried to play around and see what if we added more accessible features. The trade-off you get with that is you need a lot of spaces, say for ramps, and the space for ramps, you would have to take out other equipment. So that's kind of the compromise. Now you can do that if you expand the space, if you made the playground bigger, but then the budget explodes. So we're trying to keep the same footprint in terms of what we have to keep within budget, but put in as much apparatus as we can and keep a good portion of the playground accessible for kids who need that apparatus. And then with Magical Bridge, some of the concerns are more that they're a little bit further behind in time in terms of the planning, that the budget is kind of more, the costs are not as well known as what we have with our proposal. Not our proposal, I should say the standard proposal, the proposal that the committee has worked on. The equipment may be higher cost, may take longer to procure, and there may be difficulty in obtaining replacement parts because Game Time is probably going to procure a more kind of standard set of conventional equipment. It does rely on donor support and fundraising, so we do have to figure out if the donors will come in and the fundraising will come in. Then the revenue side, ability to raise funds, and whether they can raise funds on time, that's always an unknown, especially when you get into millions of dollars. And if the bids are higher, construction costs are higher than the 3.2 million, which is the 300K is for other costs that Magical Bridge is incurring, but the actual construction is going to be about 3.2. If those bids come up higher, then we're going to have a question about, okay, what do we do now? Do we scale back, or do we try to raise more money? Or do we go back to our standard proposal? And then what if pledge donations are not fulfilled? So there's always, the money in hand is better than someone promising the money. And then there's, in terms of what I feel are kind of a big concern, is the all abilities trade-off with our Atherton community preferences. So when we did a survey of residents and park users about a year ago, we asked them, what do they consider the most fun? And they liked all sorts of slides. And Magical Bridge Playground has slides, although they don't have, say, spiral slides or high slides that I think older kids who want more challenge like the high slides. I think that's been one of the complaints about our current playground is that it's great for little kids, but the older kids, including my kid, doesn't like using it as much because he likes using equipment in ways that are not supposed to be used, like climbing on the outside. But the ways they're supposed to be used, it's not really conducive for older kids to use. So that's one complaint I've heard from residents. A lot of residents have said they want sand, and Magical Bridge Playground can't provide sand. It's not compatible with all abilities. Vertical climbers and balance features are things that are fourth and fifth that residents and park users have asked for. Overhead climbers are the sixth thing that they've asked for, and all those are either limited or not compatible with Magical Bridge Playground, all abilities. And another concern we have is that the Magical Bridge brand is very strong. It's very well known, which is usually a good thing, but it will attract a lot of people to the park. And it could change the character of the park, in which we have a more kind of maybe smaller scale type of usage of our playground, of our facilities. But now with Magical Bridge, at least the ones I've been to, they see a lot of usage. It's very popular. So they've done a very good job of making their equipment fun, but also of people identifying Magical Bridge with great playgrounds. So it does attract people from other communities because I've gone to Palo Alto, I've gone to Redwood City to go to Magical Bridge Playground because my son loves it there. So I did a comparison, or we did a comparison of the different proposals just to make it easier to review. They're both within budget. If Magical Bridge comes through with the private fundraising, the completion of the project will be about 9 months later in Magical Bridge case versus the standard proposal, just because they're starting a little bit behind, where the standard proposal is already conceptual design is basically done. In terms of the responsiveness of the proposal to community feedback, we've tried to make that as much as possible with a standard proposal versus Magical Bridge. They are making it all abilities, but they do have to make the compromises with what can be accommodated for all abilities versus what the community wants to have in the playground. Magical Bridge is all abilities, and standard proposal is only ADA compliant. Project risks are a bit higher just because they're earlier in the process. They cost more in Magical Bridge's case versus we know a lot more things about our standard proposal and how much it's going to cost because we're farther along. Playground area is something we've already talked about, and then both sides have said they will add as much shade as possible since that was a concern among current residents and users. So all this has come down to our subcommittee recommendation, which is going with the standard proposal and making that recommendation to council. It's a better fit for what our park users and our residents have asked for based on the survey. It has more certainty in terms of cost and funding that we've already budgeted $1 million for it. We expect it to be completed sooner. It does add more accessibility improvements, although it doesn't go as far as Magical Bridge Playground, but we do have an opportunity if we spend a little bit more to put all PIP if we want. It's not expected to attract as many visitors as the Magical Bridge brand. And I'm also kind of basing that on Game Time has designed the Neyland Park playground. And I'm also very familiar with that playground because it's in Menlo Park. And that also attracts quite a few kids, but it's not as popular as Magical Bridge. But my son actually finds both of them equally fun, although the Neyland Park playground is much more challenging for him, and he likes it more and more compared to Magical Bridge nowadays because he's getting older. And one reason why we worry about the number of visitors is that we do have limited parking capacity too. A lot of the times I see with Magical Bridge, they also work on expanding parking at the same time. It's a large park renovation, not just the playground, but also There's been a few cases I've read they've added parking to because there's a lot more visitors now. So we probably are not going to be able to add that parking to our park. And it's probably expected that the ongoing maintenance will be lower with the standard design just because we use more, I guess, off-the-shelf equipment, if you will. So that kind of summarizes our proposal and be open to any questions or comments. Well, why don't we take questions and then we'll open it up for public comment for any comments on this, and then we'll come back to us for discussion. Any questions?
I just want to make a couple of brief comments. So following posting of the agenda and the attachments and the presentation by the subcommittee, Magical Bridge provided a response with some additional information. If there are questions for Magical Bridge, they're on the line, and they had indicated when you open for public comment, they wanted to kind of respond to a couple items.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
I don't have any questions, but I'll make one comment. I've been studying this ever since Magical Bridge first came forth, when we had put two concepts up in the park for people to look at, which are both traditional. And I've gone and spent a lot of time at both their parks near here. And the one thing that impresses me is this is one community. I mean, we have a different town, but I can get in 8 minutes from right here. We can get 8 minutes, or from the park, we can get from 8 minutes to the wonderful, wonderful Magical Bridge in Redwood City. 4 times larger than this. It really fits with all these concepts that they have. And it's 18 minutes from this park to Palo Alto. And so I think that's a wonderful resource that we have. But on the other hand, we have needs. If you look at the types of things that they do, they're perfectly designed for people of all kinds of needs, not just physical, but other needs, mental and so on. But they don't fit with what you see in Nealon Park. It's not what you see in other parks. Climbing is extraordinary. I just watched a 4-year-old climb 20 feet up in San Francisco. Can't do that in Magical Bridge, just because, for good reason, they want to have everything accessible. And so I would recommend everybody look at the types of Magical Bridge equipment they have, and then look at the type that we have looked at. And again, I want to emphasize that this is not the same thing that we had before. We have asked the NOS people to implement as many of these accessible things as we can fit into a reasonably designed park. And again, this is not a large community. And so we have a lot of parks around here. As one of the residents pointed out to me, there are 8 parks you could get to very easily here. So anyway, that's my view. It needs to be limited. There are lots of contingencies here. If I understand right, and I looked at some, it was provided some information that the Magical Bridge proposals in other cities have had great cost overruns and have had difficulty in raising money. And in some circumstances, they go back to the town, I believe, or some other source and say, guys, we need more money. That's not what I want to have happen on my watch anyway on this committee.
Okay, are there any questions that we have? If not, I will open it up for public comment. Seeing none.
No, you have online
Oh.
and you have read.
No.
For public,
You say no question.
Oh, no question. I'm sorry. I thought you said no public comment.
no. I wanted to see if any committee members had questions, and then we'll do public comment. Then we'll come back to the committee for discussion. But yeah, public comment is open if anyone wants to comment.
Or talking to Magical Bridge first, or-
It's up to you. The public can decide whichever order they want to come up in.
No.
Is the mic on?
The mic is on. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
yeah. And we're gonna try to limit it to 2 minutes, but if you can keep it to there, that would be great.
I want to make sure everyone knows my position. I know I've appeared before most of you, but maybe all of you. My name is Laurel Miranda. I'm a resident of Atherton. I'm a parent of 2 kids, gone through both public and private schools. One of my life's proudest accomplishments as board chair at Curiosity was helping to build a playground design partnership with Magical Bridge. It is called Whoosh. Just one of the comments of this playground that Magical Bridge might design here would be a Magical Bridge playground. It doesn't have to be that. It can be that they design it and we label it just as Curiosity labeled our playground Whoosh. We wanted to have Magical Bridge in there, so we said Whoosh designed by Magical Bridge, but it's up to the town how that labeling goes and how it goes. Magical Bridge designs, as we've discussed, are widely viewed as innovative with meet people of all ages and abilities. I think you've done a great job of really teeing up. I want to commend the subcommittee. I think you've done a great job of teeing up the 2 differences of the 2 different designs. And I would just say this is kind of like choosing an architect or choosing a painter to paint your painting. They're doing a sketch for you. You're still gonna get down into the details. So tonight you're just kind of like choosing between, did you like this architect's viewpoint better or this architect's better? And reasonable people can disagree on this. Personally, obviously, I like Magical Bridge's viewpoints. For me, it comes down to accessibility and welcoming people of all ways. I just asked, like, which people are you leaving out with the game time design? None of their slides are accessible, 0. Whereas 100% of the slides at Magical Bridge are accessible. So just like think about who's being left out by that. You know that my child is disabled, and I have shared with this committee that having Magical Bridge, the clump, so here it comes. Having a Magical Bridge designed playground in our town would be very meaningful to our family. Not limited to just for the fact of being able to take my child there and she's able to interact with other people that are from her community. It's very nice of you to point out that yes, we can take her to Palo Alto, we can take her to Redwood City. But what about the children in Atherton? Don't they deserve to have an accessible playground too in their own town? And you're talking about you don't want to attract people to our town, but you're telling me I need to go to another town. Like, do you see this, the challenge there? You're saying, Laurel, you take your daughter to Redwood City or to Palo Alto because we don't really want her here. But also we don't want other people coming in. So pick a mat, I guess, is what I would say to that. Sorry, I just want to skim through. I want to keep to your time, but I'm probably going to go over. In terms of funding, it's true. Accessibility costs more. But Magical Bridge has a history of bringing donors together to do great things. And Atherton likewise has a history of raising funds to build at Holbrook Palmer Park. We've got the tennis courts, the Little League field, and the current park as examples of the community coming together to raise money. I think my friend Katie will talk about that. But I think that we could bring funds together to bring a truly inclusive playground to Holbrook Palmer Park. Finally, in my prepared notes, we were talking about bringing, how long do playgrounds last? I personally would say you should plan for at least 20 years. So if you're looking 20 years, I wouldn't choose game time. They're kind of like the past, and I would say Magical Bridge is more the future. You were kind of asking about, can't we take a little bit of this and a little bit of that? With game time, you're stuck with game time. You're choosing from the game time menu. With Magical Bridge, they're choosing from the best products from around the world. So if you want the most innovative playground, if you want something that will have lasting power into the future, I would recommend Magical Bridge. You talked about adding parking. I might have told you that because at Curiosity, we had to add some ADA parking. Our ADA parking wasn't quite up to stuff. That's really up to the town and your interpretation of the law. I would just say that, yes, it's lower risk to go with game time. I absolutely agree with that, but it's also a lower, nothing venture, nothing gain. I think you'll have a lower, you won't have the highest quality playground. You're going to think children about who deserve us. Regarding sandboxes, broken record on this, but if you talk to Susan, who runs the preschool, the play school in the park, she has very strict measures that if they had sand, that she would have to follow, where she has to cover the sand up. And the reason is cats defecate in sandboxes. It's very virus, toxoplasmosis, which is dangerous to pregnant. So who comes to playgrounds and that dander, when that gets up and it's inhaled by a pregnant woman, she could lose her fetus or could have disabilities. Just something to think about. I mean, obviously, these are a lot of community factors, and I don't think you should make your decision whether one playground has sand or not. I do think, though, that you should consider who do you want to have come to your playground in terms of who's accessible. We have 1 out of 5 people in the country have a disability. Some of it's physical and some of it's not. Any of us could be one of those 1 in 5. And it's not limited, so I would love to have a playground where a parent can be in a wheelchair and isn't limited, You're saying, oh, well, this equipment doesn't need to have accessibility because the child maybe isn't gonna be using it who's disabled. Well, what about the disabled parent, the disabled grandparent? So, in conclusion, I'm sorry I went over, Alex. I understand that you definitely sound like you want to present the game time version to the council, but I would also ask you to let them know that there's this other opportunity out there and let it have a fair shot in front of the elected officials.
Yeah. I think this committee will just make a recommendation and both proposals will be presented to the council. Yeah, if you want to go next, yeah, go ahead.
I'm Katie Peck, resident of Atherton. I just want to follow up with Laurel by saying that I reached out to probably about 15 major philanthropic donors in Atherton. It takes time to get figures, but I have a lot of interest. And many of them have said, well, how much traction have you gotten? And so it's sort of in this area where I can't really say because we haven't gotten there yet, but they want to know what's happening. And so I think, if things got going, they would definitely come through. This week, I'm actually going to get some figures. So, keep abreast of that. But as I said, it takes time for them to get to their people. They're all very busy, but there's a great amount of interest. And then we would go, of course, to the second tier of sending out a mass mailing of letters to all of Atherton and getting donations that way. I have a lot of people I know and friends that want to, support, but we wanted to start with the deeper pockets first. So
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You have Elaine online.
Okay. Ken, did you want to say anything or you're good? Okay, why don't we, if we can let Elaine speak? Okay, Elaine, you can speak.
Great. Hey, everyone. I was just hoping to respond to some of the points made during the presentation, specifically regarding community support for Magical Bridge. I wanted to note that the committee has received, in addition to hearing from Laurel and Katie, a significant number of public comments and written statements expressing support for Magical Bridge. I don't think there's been a comparable volume of support for the standard proposal, which I really think shows the community preference for the Magical Bridge offering. And regarding the survey itself, my understanding is that it was designed as a primarily multiple choice question survey that is tailored to a conventional playground model. But nevertheless, Magical Bridge was mentioned specifically as a preferred design over 10 times in the open-ended questions. I also wanted to clarify the playground footprint. Again, what we're proposing here is a neighborhood format Magical Bridge. And as Laurel said, there's flexibility in the naming. And it would be really a quarter of the size of our destination playgrounds. So it would be specifically designed to serve local families rather than attracting large crowds like the destination playgrounds. And then regarding where we are in the process, we view civic engagement as a positive rather than a risk as it was labeled by the subcommittee. We think it's an opportunity to involve residents to shape the playground to meet their needs. So in the needs, we keep on referring to children, but again, what we're aiming to design is a truly multi-generational space that serves children of all abilities, adults regardless of their abilities, and those adults include older adults. And then regarding the cost, I want everyone to understand that the costs that we're presenting are inclusive of everything, including the design costs. And that's still unclear for me about the game time proposal, whether the revised playground design actually includes the likely increased design costs. And also there will be no mechanism to fund any shortfalls with the standard proposal. Whereas the Magical Bridge proposal is a public-private partnership where the fundraising would address, the gap between the availability of city funds and the total budget. And then Walter, in response to your comment about Magical Bridge cost overruns, I think it's important to understand that most of our projects are part of much larger urban park projects. So a lot of those cost overruns are associated with other components of the projects, like fields that we were not involved in, but they're rolled up into our project. So I wanted to clarify that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments you can see? Okay. So let me bring this back to the committee. One thing I do want to mention also, in the survey comments, there were not only mentions of Magical Playground specifically, but there were 10 mentions of Nealon Park too. So both unprompted people have said they like Nealon, they like Magical Bridge. So it's.
And I just looked at those tonight. There were, I think, 3 that simply referred to Magical Bridge as having good ideas. Every other one combined it with something else. Typically, look at Nealon and Magical Bridge.
Yeah.
Nobody was really saying, in my view, except those 3 maybe, they would push for something that was totally that way.
And Nealon is a game time design.
Right.
If you've been to Nealon, you can see that the actual apparatus is very similar to what Nealon has. And so that's one thing I wanted to mention. So if anyone has comments they want to share, we can discuss, and then we can decide if we want to make a recommendation. No comments. Okay. Let's try to find my notes again here. If we have, let me see. I had a few things I wanted to comment, but I need to put my notes then. So I just. Here. Here. Just a few things in terms of number of people. The concern I have in terms of number of people is more, we don't have the parking. When there's a Little League game, the parking is overrun. When there's an event, the parking is overrun. So if we have a playground that consistently attracts a lot of people, we're going to be way out of parking. So that's one concern I have about Magical Bridge is consistently popular. The Redwood City one I've been to, Palo Alto, they're both very popular. And Redwood City, I also saw that when they built it, they rebuilt their parking too, so that they could accommodate many more people. So that was my concern in terms of there's that risk. If it becomes very popular, we don't have a way to expand parking. Unless we want to take away some of the green space. And I'm not sure the residents would want to do that to the park. They'd like to keep it very natural, and they don't like adding more parking if we can. And it is our only public playground. So I think some of the other cities that have Magical Bridge, they have other types of playgrounds. They can accommodate, for older kids or kids who wants a different type of experience, or they want a Magical Bridge. For Atherton, we only have this one and only playground, and I feel we should try to meet the needs of as many residents as we can in the budget that we have, based on the preferences they express in the survey. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. If there's no comments, if there's a motion, we can entertain a motion and vote on it.
Make the motion that we recommend to council that they adopt the standard version on the basis that it will be proposed as being within budget, and there will be assurances given as much as possible that after going through the entire process, bidding and so on, that it will stay within budget.
Do I have a second? Okay. Do we need to do a roll call vote or?
No.
No, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it's unanimously approved and.
Only caveat, only thing I would also ask is if the council is going to be given both proposals to look at. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
That would be, yeah, that would.
Yeah,
be-
so our intent, similar to the way that we presented both options,
Yep.
we will be presenting both options to the city council at a public meeting where it'll be open for residents and others to provide feedback.
Okay, I do want to thank Magical Bridge for giving us the proposal, letting us consider it, giving us the opportunity. We do appreciate it. And you have a chance to also make your case to the council and see if, what they have to say. Okay.
And I'll add, I'm very impressed with the devotion that people have made to that cause and the success that you have had in doing that. I visited all three of them within driving distance here, and they are adapted to a great need for what they're designed to do. And to have this output that you guys have made, I find very impressive, and I thank you for it.
We'll move on to 5B pickleball update.
All right, thank you, Chair. This is just going to be a brief update. Following your recommendation, we brought forth the expansion of the pickleball program to the city council at their meeting last month. They approved the addition of all-day Sunday to the pickleball hours. The one item that they did not do was the allowance for drop-in play. So the additional hours on Sunday are all reservable, just as with the rest of the hours. Again, all residents have the opportunity with a key to access any court during the periods where they are not reserved. And so that's the same for tennis players as well as pickleball players.
Oh, but for pickleball, it's only relevant for court one.
If it's not in use, they're able to come in and use it.
Because it's
No, yeah.
not laid out. The other courts.
Understood.
That's what you think. The pickleball people will play on the tennis court. I've seen
Oh, is
that.
that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Michael Jessup and Player Capital have updated their reservation system to add the Sunday hours. And we are in the process of purchasing new signage to replace the signage that we have there at the tennis courts. So that's the update. The other item is that at this point in time, pickleball usage is going to be running indefinitely. So it's not going to end at the end of the tennis year, because basically we're at winter. And so at this point in time, the council has just left it as an open-ended endeavor.
So if I can ask a question, are we done dealing with pickleball then?
Uh,
As if it's indefinite, there's nothing left to,
At
do,
this
right?
point in time, it's more of staff monitoring. I think that if there are issues and complaints that come to the committee, please share them with us. I believe that we've all seen how successful the trial has been. And with your recommendation and the council's approval, it'll be continuing.
Has there been any feedback about permanent courts?
Not at this time.
Okay. And I presume if there's no one asking for permanent courts, we'll just keep this current temporary situation kind of permanent itself. And I mean, is there anything left for the subcommittee to do?
Not at this point in time.
Okay. Should I disband the
You
subcommittee?
can disband the subcommittee.
You'll also notice when we get to the park report, that the last report was 116 hours, which is very consistent. There's
Yeah.
no great demand. It's not increasing sufficient so that would be a push to have a permanent court.
Okay, okay. And we'll see with the new Sunday all-day hours, if there's an increase in usage, and if there's getting to be more conflicts, then maybe we'll look at something separate.
Well,
Unless we hear from.
We might, except Michael was very clear, Michael Jessup.
Mhm.
Sunday will not be a conflict.
Okay,
It's quieter from the teaching or from the tennis facility.
okay.
So that's why we picked it.
and the committee's report to the council included the concept that if the pickleball players want to raise money and create a permanent court, they can always recommend that.
Okay, okay,
So
okay.
I don't think,
Well, I guess I'll open it up to public comment.
I think Bob wants.
There's no
Oh,
public.
you wanted to?
I was just going to say that the proposal was to have a look in a year to say, how are we doing?
Okay,
And that we would follow up with that. And I think that just happens. But I think from the way I look at it is pickleball is here. It's here to stay unless some dramatic thing happens that would change it.
Yeah.
So that's my view on pickleball.
okay. Is there anyone online that has public comment? No, okay. So I'm gonna propose to, well, I'm chair, I guess it's my prerogative. If there's no objection, I'm going to disband the pickleball subcommittee, because we're basically done, right?
In
There's,
favor, say aye. Aye.
no, well, it's my prerogative, so you don't need to worry about it. I mean, Bob, is there anything we have left to talk about on the subcommittee? Yeah. Okay, subcommittee is gone. Whew, that's one fewer thing we have to worry about. Okay, see, we do get stuff accomplished here. If there's no other comments, I'll move on to 5C. Facilities walk around review. Did anyone have anything they wanted to say about the facilities that they didn't give Will their comments on?
Only thing I'd like, whoops, only thing I'd like to mention is that I think looking at later on, of course, the park usage and all, I think that the sooner we get the pavilion done and the sooner we get the floors and such, and the sooner we get the flooring in the main house, the better appearance it's going to be for people wanting to use the facility for weddings and such. And I think it'll be reflected with income later on.
Okay, so the plan is to do the floor, all the floors at once?
I would recommend
Okay.
get them done.
Okay, so
Get them done. Get them done tomorrow.
does.
Tomorrow?
You and her need to meet with him. He's got some samples and stuff.
Okay.
Luckily, you guys are already a subcommittee.
You two are the
I know,
subcommittee.
we are. We can do that.
Okay, it's a date. It's a
All right.
three-person
I'm
date. So should we put this on next month's agenda?
Sure.
Okay, so in December, we'll
Sure.
have.
Are you around Friday?
December, we'll have a facilities
I'm
discussion.
gonna be at the park
Talk
anyway, so
about
why don't we meet?
What we want to do for,
Gonna be there at
probably it'll be
11:30.
more prioritization and then just acknowledgement that we all agree that whatever needs to be done gets
well,
done
he
first.
is looking to bid them out.
Well,
So-
people that have given. I have people that have given us bids on like a thing. It's more of just picking what materials, colors, all that kind of stuff and getting pricing together that way
Okay.
and timeframe.
So do you need feedback from our committee on any of those?
I would
Those
say
questions.
that, between Frank, myself and Dorothy, we could come up with ideas and then present them to the committee and then you
Okay.
guys can make the decision.
Does that sound good? Okay.
On Friday?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
We'll make it work.
Well, I gotta be at the park at 11:30 anyway, to talk about the fountain. Huh? Yeah, that noon's fine. I mean, I won't take,
Whenever we're done talking, I'll take my lunch. Don't worry about it. I'll make it
Robert's got
work.
on working hard. Okay, we'll move on to, is there anything else on the facilities? No public comment on the facilities? Okay. We'll move on to 5D, the Brightview Quality Site Assessments.
Yeah, the quality assessments are in your packet. If you have any questions, please let me know. There's both September and October in there.
No comments, anyone? No questions?
I will just continue to reflect on how much the Brightview people have cleaned everything up and made it look better all the way around.
Great.
I have a question. Are we going to have a walkthrough with Brightview? Because I see a lot of unintentional growth, suckers, weeds,
Yeah. they've
plants that
had
the
some
birds
pictures.
have planted.
We have it 6 months. Every 6 months we have a walkthrough. So this was the
Okay.
interior walkthrough. So in 5 months, we should have our exterior
Our
walkthrough.
plant, okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of dead branches and.
Yeah, but I think in the meantime, can't Dorothy?
Yeah, so if you see issues in the park, as with any resident, if you see issues with the, take pictures, send to Will, use our app,
SeeClick
Fix. And that way we get the information and can coordinate. SeeClick Fix works on any issue we have in town. You see a street light out. These are my plugs. You see a street light out, we're not driving around at night. You guys are. So if you see something that needs to be repaired, let us know.
Get any reports about garbage bins not put in all the way?
You can complain about it, and we'd be
No,
glad
no,
to
I've-
pass it
I've
on to
seen-
code
I've seen
enforcement.
someone do mass complaints of all up and down streets of that. I find that very strange. But anyways. 6A, Park Foundation Report, Frank?
Thank you. I have hopefully arranged to get a thorough evaluation of restoring the original fountain on Friday with Oleg from Oleg something or other designs. And I will be able to give you a lot more information next month as to whether or not, but that's what the foundation has been trying to do, is figure out a way to get the original fountain put back together.
Okay.
So
Do we need a separate item for that or
possibly.
if we need to recommend some budget or whatever for it?
I think the foundation, if I remember correctly, the foundation is going to undertake that on their own.
Okay.
One other question, Mike, do we have to pay prevailing wage if,
The city does it?
no, I mean, if Magical Bridge builds or do they do something else?
If we're bidding it, then yes,
How about if they're bidding it?
that I don't know.
Okay, I was just thought of that later on.
If we're contributing funds, that may,
That we would have.
then it might.
So just let Will know if you need an item on the agenda for next.
Okay. So I'm gonna recognize efforts in this spot, efforts that Frank has done. I'm assuming under the eyes of the foundation. He's got the Boy Scout troop fixing up the entry gates, repainting and stuff. And so I just want to say
We
thank you.
have, interesting that when I arranged with the scouts to come out and do that, we went out, the first thing I wanted to do was repair and repaint, and clean up the old antique gate that's up on the little edge there. And son of a gun, I go out there, I look at it, I go, what the hell's the matter with this thing? It looks like it's been painted. And I called Robert, I said, this thing's been painted. He goes, yeah, we just found out that the painters they were painting the Gilmore House. They painted it, which so looks great. But the kids they're about halfway through repairing the 1971 light posts that are there in the entrance to the park. And
They're painting the light posts.
they're not,
Okay.
just they're repairing the electricity, the electrical point. We're trying to get solar managed so that the lights will operate with solar. And that's to be determined, but the kids are scraping and painting and fixing it all up. And it looks very good. They're about halfway through.
We're not paying them a prevailing wage, are we?
Absolutely.
I was up there when they were working this weekend. Very impressive. This was not just a couple of kids.
No, whole
They had
bunch.
parents,
Yeah.
they had tables spread out, they had people throwing things to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a wonderful view
Yeah.
of A, Boy Scouts, and B, community activity.
Yeah.
I think I did, actually.
The scouts should, the part of the report should be taking pictures of what they've got, who they brought, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, when we get that, I'll pass it along.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Park Division Monthly Report and Park Events Report.
So in front of you have both September and October's reports. For September, we had an event in the park, the bike rodeo that was put on by PD that we helped out with. We fixed a main line irrigation issue in the event garden. We did some work in the play school, the tennis courts, and at the Gilmore House, and did some sink repairs and everything like that. October, we've been working tennis court. The fountain outside is leaking and running really bad. We've just ordered a replacement for it. It should be here in a couple weeks. It will be a bottle filler plus a dog
Oh,
drinking one
so
and everything like
completely
that.
new.
Completely new
Oh,
one.
awesome. Yeah, that thing's constantly broken.
Yeah, so that should be installed hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Cool.
We've installed the sandbag station inside the parking lot for the rainy weather. The MCA crew has been working in the gutter and roofs to clean out the Jennings Pavilion, Carriage House, Play School, Baseball Stadium. And, cleaned off the roofs and gutters and everything like that. We did some work. The parking lot slurry project repair was finished and finalized. Play School bathroom pump has been replaced. It's been an ongoing issue. We're having issues with foreign debris being put down the toilets and stuff like that. So we've posted some signs and put some trash bins in there for things to be deposited there instead of down the toilet. So we're working on that. And then other small events throughout the main house and Carriage House. Tennis wise, you can see September, we had about 116 hours for pickleball. Everything kind of stayed the pickleball hours increased in October. As far as event wise, we had a kind of a slow month. In September, we only had a couple rentals, coming up to about 1,085. Moving forward, we had a few more rentals in October, about a $4,000 price tag for that month. So it's been up and down. We have a few more things coming up in the next couple weeks. There's an event next Tuesday that Stanford's going to be putting on at the Jennings Pavilion, and then other day use permits and everything.
Are you working directly with the people who are doing the renting or?
Yeah, so we have a temp agency that's been a few different people, but right now it's been Jerry Ann is her name. I work with her every day. So when it comes to rentals and any kind of issues or setups, I work with her.
And is the problem with not getting a lot of rentals, have prospective clients said specifically, what is the price is too high or?
I think it's mostly just kind of marketing wise. Not a lot of people know that what's
Okay.
going on there. It's, it's
So once we get.
mostly word of
a
mouth and mostly-
Professional
yeah.
organization to do the renting and promotion, then maybe.
it might pick up
Okay.
a little bit. And I think the helping to update the facilities, the flooring, the lighting, painting, all that kind of stuff is going to definitely make it more appealing to the public.
Okay, okay. Are there any questions or comments? No? Okay. Dorothy? Oh, Bob. go ahead.
I have a comment on the walk around. We keep a listing of where we've been. And so we get to them frequently, every so often. And some of them we didn't get to tonight that are on the agenda. So I'd like the ones that we didn't get to go back on a future time,
Talking about the facilities, you mean?
the walk around.
Yeah, because of the
7
dark,
places that
we
we
weren't
were
able
supposed
to
to see.
get a couple places.
court.
4 of them we couldn't get into. And the other, it got dark on the,
The what we couldn't get into?
we could.
We couldn't get into the play school.
There,
School.
We don't
Oh,
usually
the
go
play
through the
school.
inside of
Yeah,
the play
tell 'em,
school.
tell 'em.
actually.
We didn't do that at all.
So,
We were
Yeah,
unable to
we
get
do
into
that.
the
We
children's
do.
playground and bathrooms.
that.
The
Okay.
main house patio, we didn't go up to the pavilion patio area, and bathrooms are okay. The tennis courts, the interior of the play school exterior,
So is,
lighting was just kind of, we need a little bit.
is the proposal then 5 months from now, when we do our exterior walkthrough, to then also cover the,
yeah, they just say,
Facilities.
get
Can I
back on
make
it.
an
Just-
alternate
They should just
suggestion?
get back on a list so that we don't skip
Yeah.
them for a whole.
So
whole time.
can I make an alternate suggestion? I think that most of the areas that you didn't hit are generally accessible with the exception of the play school. And so if you would like to either A, visit on your own or with Will, what Will can do is tabulate the comments received and bring them at the next meeting.
okay,
That way, it's not rescheduling, it's addressing, and the only thing that you'll miss would be the interior of the play school, which we have Susan Knox reach out to us when there are issues anyway. But everything else is generally accessible.
okay. We'll move on to member comments. Do we have any member comments? Anyone? I have a few comments. One is that we were supposed to discuss a resident survey in October, but we couldn't because we canceled our October meeting. So Walt and I provided the town survey some questions for the park. So we did that in lieu of the committee just to, because we ran out of time. And then housing wise, the Gilmore House is going to become up to 10 houses or up to 10 units, something like that.
The
acres.
Gilmore House is not in the housing plan.
Okay,
The Gilmore House was part of the CEQA review.
okay,
And the council decided that it would, if it needs to consider 5 or more housing units at the Gilmore House, but that would replace the Gilmore House.
okay. Is there, in terms of next step, is there something that?
It's in the next step.
Okay, we just submit the plans and then,
We've submitted the plan to the state
Okay.
and we're waiting to hear back from the state. We'll hear back from the state by the end of the year.
okay,
But it doesn't, there's nothing currently
okay,
related to the Gilmore House property. If the council decides to do anything with that, the first thing it would have to do is subdivide the park.
okay.
Because the
okay.
parcel that the Gilmore House is on is not a separate parcel.
Oh, it's not,
It's
okay,
one 22-acre parcel.
okay,
So if the council wants to put any housing where the Gilmore House is, it'd have to create that parcel.
okay, okay.
As I
So,
understood what the council had instructed, staff was to go to Stanford and get some kind of binding commitment that this would not
A
violate.
long
the
time ago,
contingency.
yeah, a long time ago, the staff was to go to Stanford and there was a conversation with a person in development, I believe they were. And they said that Stanford had no interest in the property. The council instructed legal counsel to file a motion with the court to clarify that there's no taint on the property. So that would say that the clause that's in the deed would no longer be valid.
And that's pending now then.
Well, we instructed the city attorney to do that. I don't think she's done anything yet, but
Yeah.
she will.
Okay.
Interesting enough, there was actually a legal opinion quite a few years ago. that
There was a
public.
legal opinion.
And this one's not public, as I understand it. That is the one that your current council gave a couple of years ago. But anyway, there's a provision in state law that you have to somehow keep your contingent right in effect. And if you let a certain number of years go by, you don't get that right anymore. That's what they're going to try to
Well,
enforce.
yeah, there was a state law passed that said that anyone who has a contingent right, in order to perfect that contingent right, they have to record a deed, record a provision with the county recorder. And to our knowledge, that had, Stanford did not do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not a taint on the deed. So we've instructed the attorney to go to the court to get a ruling that that's no longer valid.
Are you saying that in the number count that's given to HCD, number of low income and so on, all four categories, that the Gilmore House is not in that count?
Correct.
Okay. Then the next couple months, we're gonna have a mid-year budget review, CIP planning and Atherton Arts, because that's part of the schedule. So Dorothy, did you have a preference whether you want to go in December or January? Okay, whichever. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. I'll work out with Will those three things because we have to figure out with Robert in the finance office which one he wants, which month he can come in. Whoever you want, anyone from Atherton Arts can, yeah. That's all I had. If there's no other member comments, we can adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Okay. We are adjourned.